Hi, my name is Rachel Ellingwood, and I'm with the program on the environment here at UW. The title of my presentation is Making Fruitful Habitats, Best Practices for Fruit Gleaning Organizations to Ease the Effects of Climate Change on Pollinators. I did this work as part of my Capstone research project while I interned with City Fruit in the summer of 2023. So my research is surrounded around this topic of fruit gleaning, which is the act of collecting unwanted or unclaimed fruit and redistributing it to the community. So this is a valuable method of increasing food access and security. Since fruit gleaners source their materials from fruit species that must be pollinated, it is important that pollinators themselves are supported in order to maintain their ecological health as well as food accessibility for humans. Pollinators are experiencing declines in health and population size due to climate change, like wildfires, drought, habitat loss, and habitat shifts. However, there are currently no established guidelines for gleaners themselves to support these pollinators through their unique work. And this leads me to my research question, which is what pro-pollinator methods are currently being used, and how can fruit gleaning organizations apply these methods to their specific context? So to answer this question, I worked with City Fruit as a community harvest and outreach intern, where I primarily gleaned residential fruit trees, as you can see in Figure 1, and then processed and donated fruit to local food banks in Seattle. Alongside my internship, I conducted an online survey aimed at farmers, community gardeners, orchardists, pollinator experts, and other environmental volunteers or stewards. These questions gauge current methods being used in their diverse contexts and ask for suggestions for fruit gleaners based on the respondents' experience or expertise. And then I conducted a literature review to determine why methods are effective to support pollinators. So through the survey and literature review, I found that there are many methods for pollinator support, as you can see in Figure 2, but that they fall under four main themes. Providing nesting resources is a key way of giving pollinators habitats, which are necessary for survival and successful reproduction. This is often done through biodiverse plantings, creating pollinator hedgerows, which are just planted patches or areas focused on plants that specifically draw in pollinators to prevent isolation, or this can be laying out dead wood or debris for nesting, or just having urban gardens in general. Another theme is providing foraging resources, which is simply planting or providing flowering species that create abundant sources of nutrition, pollen, nectar, and energy needed by vital pollinators. I also found that through the survey and the literature that intentional management of efforts are very common, and these can include organic farming management, which requires that there's no use of pesticides or synthetic fertilizers that can harm pollinators or the species that they rely on. This can also be like low intensity efforts, like having less manicured lawns, since mowing or raking can destroy habitats that may exist in soils or other organic debris. And finally, pro-pollinator methods can be as straightforward as spreading awareness of the issue and how people can support local pollinators, like through volunteering, removing invasive species, or other planting events to actively help pollinators on an individual level. So to answer the second part of my question, which is how these current methods fit into the act of gleaning, many of these pro-pollinator methods can be done while gleaning, but due to the unique nature of the work, it's often difficult to dictate what tree owners decide to do with their trees and surrounding land. Therefore, it is important that gleaning organizations can take advantage of the frequent connection with tree owners by encouraging the methods outlined above. And second, gleaning organizations have many opportunities to communicate best practices and suggestions with their wide audiences, including those that they glean from, those that they donate to, or even those that they communicate with at outreach events like farmers markets. And lastly, gleaning organizations can hold those that they glean from accountable for their role in supporting pollinators. So long-term contact with these tree owners is a possible opportunity to encourage pro-pollinator actions year after year. So what are the implications of these findings? First, the results of the study may support the establishment of clear guidelines that gleaning organizations everywhere can implement to further the positive effects on struggling pollinator populations. And second, the study can be the basis for further research into methods to encourage homeowners and tree stewards to maintain pro-pollinator efforts themselves. It may also be necessary to study whether these methods are effective in supporting pollinators on different scales and time periods. And finally, more broadly, the study on gleaning and the integration of pro-pollinator actions is suggestive of the fact that supporting at-risk species can take place in many different settings. In other words, more sectors of environmentalism could establish actions in their work to help conserve species that are being affected by climate change currently or might be in the future. Thank you for attending my presentation.